Mongozo Premium Pilsner.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. The sun is well and truly over the yard arm, so that means it's time for a beer. And I've got one of these. This is the Mongozo Premium Pilsner. Now, this is brewed by the Brewery, Huyghe. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's probably not, but it's my interpretation of the Flemish pronunciation. It's Huyghe or something like that, but it's pronounced something like Huyghe or something like that. I know there's a couple of Dutch subscribers. If you can correct me on that, I would be most grateful so I don't make that mistake again. But if it sounds familiar, if you've ever heard of the Delirium Tremens, heard of that? Quite a well-known Belgian beer. It's got the pink elephant on the label. It's the same brewery. What I love about that is Delirium Tremens is actually, or not now, but back then it was the onset of mental delirium from alcohol, excessive alcohol consumption. Some people call it wet brain. It's basically where you're hallucinating, for days on end with alcohol withdrawal symptoms, etc. And that's what they've called it. But yeah, they've come up with this Mongozo range of beers, and the Mongozo range is quite interesting. They do, obviously, the Pilsner, but they do some fruit flavoured beers. I think they do a raspberry, but the one that's intriguing me is they do a coconut flavoured beer, and that's made with buckwheat, and the glass for it is like a sort of, I think it's a ceramic coconut type shell, which looks interesting. I may get some, but I love Bounty bars, and it's going to taste fuck all like that. But it's in the back of my mind to get some of it. But I haven't got any of that now. I have got this Mongozo Premium Pilsner. And this is organic, gluten-free beer and fair trade beer as well. It's won a few awards too. It's to be gluten-free, I'll just quickly go over what gluten-free is. I've reviewed quite a few gluten-free beers on this channel, and for anybody with a gluten intolerance, I haven't got that, thankfully, but whoever has got that, it's not pleasant, believe me. And there is an enzyme in the wheat or the barley or whatever you want to call it that's put into beer. And basically what happens is there is a process that this enzyme is removed. Now, there are different ways of doing it, but this particular brewery do it in 2 stages, and to qualify to be gluten free, it has to be under 3 parts per million, or 3 ppm. That is the measurement, and apparently this is checked on a regular basis when they brew it, and it's got to be under that measurement, otherwise it can't be classed as gluten free. Now, gluten free beers can be hit or miss because obviously this process is not a natural brewing process, and the removal of the enzyme can create different flavours which aren't that pleasant. I do remember trying I think it was the Damn gluten-free, I can't remember the name of it, but I do remember that it didn't really have a nice flavour to it. I remember Brewdog, of all people, did a gluten-free and it was quite nice. So, if you've got a gluten intolerance, you've got to be careful which beer you drink. Obviously, you can't drink normal beers. Most people with a gluten intolerance, they just drink cider, because obviously cider doesn't contain that enzyme. But I'm going off topic here a little bit, but needless to say, this is a gluten-free beer from Belgium. It's a Pilsner. So let's get it open. Let's see what's going on. Right, I'll give you a look at the label first. There it is. And the cap is just plain green. It is a 330ml bottle. It's 5%. And blah, blah, blah. It's got, you know, Premium Pilsner is fair trade, organic, organilus. I don't even know what it means. And gluten free, blah, blah, blah. I was listening to someone the other day. No, I wasn't listening to it. That's a lie. My missus listens to a podcast and it's called, is it Shagged, Married and Annoyed? And the fella on that, he was drinking organic beer and he drank loads of it and he couldn't work out why he woke up with a hangover. And he said, it's organic. I thought it'd be fine. And put it this way, organic beer does not stop you from getting a hangover. It will, yeah, you won't have any of the fucking nasties in there, but it's not the nasties. Well, they can give you a hangover, some of these nasties, but the big thing is alcohol. Alcohol is what gives you the hangover, and the hangover is a withdrawal symptom from alcohol. Ever heard of hair of the dog? Of course, what you're doing is you're feeding that. I'm not saying it's an addiction, but when you have a withdrawal symptom, if you drink more alcohol, you know, you're slaking that thirst for alcohol that your body has got. So that's why, you know, a hair of the dog works. But it's, you know, it's not that old saying, avoid a hangover, stay drunk. There is some truth in that, but obviously that's not good for the old liver. So don't try it, boys and girls, just suffer it. And I'll tell you something, at my age, the hangovers are getting worse and worse. Anyway, enough about hangovers. Let's get this beer sorted out. Right, it's a Premium Pilsner. Smells quite sulphurous on the opening, but it doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to pass judgment on it. I'm going to give it a little bit of an aggressive pour to get some head on that. There it is in the glass. Very clear, lots of carbonation on that. Can you see that? What are we getting on the nose? Very earthy and hoppy, and it smells of astringent malt. Birra Moretti, you aware of that beer? It's got that sort of flavour to it. Now, being a Pilsner, of course, it's going to have that dry, earthy bitterness, similar to what a North German Pilsner was, and I'm assuming this is what this is based on. You know, because the two countries sort of, I know they have a great brewing tradition, but they do share a lot of, especially when it comes to lager, that when they do Pilsners, that they do share a lot in common with the North German Pilsners. Yeah, that is quite strong on the old earth and the hops, and it does smell like there's German hops in there, but there's like an astringency to it, which doesn't smell that good, to be honest. Anyway, let's get it down the hatch and see what's going on. Cheers. That is quite bland, to be honest. Mouthfeel ain't bad. It's slightly lacking in flavour. It's quite clean tasting, as in it's got light mouthfeel. I mean, that carbonation is a bit misleading. That doesn't translate into the mouthfeel, but I don't know, it just lacks real flavour, in my opinion. Now, I know it's gluten-free, so there's probably, in that two-stage process of removing that enzyme, I think it's taken something out. Now, they do make a big thing about saying this process doesn't take any of the flavour out, but there's not much there at all, to be honest. can see what it's trying to do. It's trying to be a Pilsner, and there is quite a lot of hop earthiness and bitterness on the top, which you would expect from a Pilsner. Not much in the malt stakes, which of course being gluten free, this has probably had, you know, some of the flavour taken out, even though they say it doesn't, but it's just a little bit uninspiring to me. Now, I've tasted North German Pilsners before and some of them have been quite good. They still retain some of their flavour, but the thing is, I can't be too harsh on this beer in particular because it's gluten free, so it's gone through a certain process, which, you know, even though they say it doesn't, I think it's taken something away from the flavour. That being said, it's not the worst lager in the world. It's quite clean drinking. I am sure any average lager drinkers, if I gave that to them, filled it out in a glass, they would drink that, and they would probably wouldn't bat an eyelid and just drink it straight down. It's just okay, nothing more, nothing less. Certainly looks okay, but it's just very uninspiring and bland in my opinion. In fact, the Jupiler that I tried had a bit more character for it, and that is a super macro brewed Belgian Pilsner. This is, it's just there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. If this was given to me on a hot day, straight out of the fridge, yeah, I would gulp it down, and I would not think twice about having another one. But it's just not very inspiring, to be honest. You know, maybe it's my expectations from Belgium. And I have to say, obviously Belgium isn't renowned for its lager. It's more renowned for its, you know, Abbey style beers, its blondes, its doubles, its triples, its Vit beers, etc. Lager really isn't its sort of thing, in my opinion, even though they do some. Yeah, on the whole, this is just very uninspiring. There's not much flavour there at all. There's a bit of noble hop character, earthiness on the top, and that's about it. It hasn't even got the real dry finish you'd expect from a North German Pilsner. Disappointing. So what's the verdict on Mongozo? Right, it's gluten-free, it's organic, and it's gluten-free and fair trade as well. I've got to take that into consideration. Now, they're obviously trying to achieve something here. They want to, it's organic for starters. It's got to be gluten-free, and they've got to make it fair trade as well. So there's going to be compromises there. Generally, it's not a bad Pilsner. Maybe I'm expecting a little bit much from it because, I don't know, just because it's from Belgium, even though Belgium's not renowned for its Pilsners. The flavour is, there's a bit of hop character on it, and that's about it. There's not much else. There's some earthy hop character and no real biscuit malt, which I can sort of get if it's gluten free. They may have done something to that remove that sort of flavour, and I know Pilsners are meant to be drier than your average lager, but there is still a bit of malt going on in there, but I'm just not getting it with this, unfortunately. I'm going to give it a little, what I think is a bit of a generous 6 out of 10, certainly no more. Would I recommend it? Well, let me have a look at the price, because I've got the price here. I've got this from Beer Sniffers, and I've got the price list here. Now, bear in mind, it's a 330ml bottle, so it's basically half a pint. And, oh, it didn't come from Beer Sniffers. This came from Beer Hulk. Was it Beer Hulk? No, it wasn't. Was it Beers of Europe? I can't remember. It didn't come from Beer Sniffers, though. Noble Green it came from. I think it was about just over £2 a bottle. I wouldn't recommend it. For £2, if you wanted an half decent beer, you could get a German beer for more or less the price of that. And even a bottle of Jupiler, I prefer the Jupiler to this. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're gluten intolerant, then buy it. It's not a bad shout, and you're not really missing out on much, to be honest, drinking this. But if you're not gluten intolerant, then there's better beers out there. So yeah, a bit of a generous 6 out of 10. And I recommend it if you're gluten intolerant, but if you're not, then there's better out there. And remember, beer is working class champagne.